Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you to this meeting of the Temple City Council to conduct a workshop on September 21st, 2023. It's currently 3 p.m. Do we have anybody signed up to speak? No. All right, we'll just move right on to the first item, which is to receive comments from Mr. Jack Morris regarding Temple water rights. Jack?
Can I sit here or can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Well, this has been a long fight for years. When I was on council, last part of 2000, we got into the court, federal court in Austin because the Brazos River was going to take water out of Lake Belton, run a pipeline to Georgetown. At the time, Jonathan Graham was our attorney, and he said we had paperwork to prove that we had rights in there. And so we decided to fight it against that time the mayor and the business manager. They were willing to let them have the water because they were going to pay us for it. Of course, that gave them some money that we didn't have. But the money wasn't the important thing to the council at that time. Water was, and it still should be. I hope it is anyway. But when this thing came back up, that they're going to build a pipeline from Belton to Stillhouse, that's just a back door entry because Stillhouse is pumping it to Georgetown. I don't remember how many million gallons a day, but they're doing it right now, as low as the water is. And as bad as the water situation is now, now's a good time to fight it, I think. And it wouldn't matter, any time is good fight. We've got two great lakes here. Lake, the Stillhouse Hollow has got one of the finest waters in the state of Texas in it because of where it drains from. Temple's water has had a fight because it doesn't have good clean water. We have to do a lot of work with it. And over the past, we had to go up to Eastland where it starts out as a creek almost. Well, if you've ever been up there, there's a bunch of little tributaries go into it, but it's dry up there right now. But anyway, when it rains up there, the water comes down. There's no place. However, after we got Belton built, and I say we, Frank Mayburn and the person that was in charge of the House of Representatives, Bob Poe, were good buddies, and they together, along with Byron Skelton, I think I made a mistake on that. I didn't say Byron, it is Byron Skelton. They put together a deal and made it go through, and then Byron wrote all of the rights that we had in Lake Belton. And when we went to court, the court said, you have the rights. You don't own it, but you have the rights. And they stopped the pipeline out of Belton. We didn't have any rights in Stillhouse, so they went to Stillhouse and they got that through. I don't think anybody fought it. Why, I don't know, but that was their problem. But now it's a county thing as far as I'm concerned. We ought to be fighting to keep both of those lakes away from anybody. In the year 2002, if they had, the BRA had taken the initiative to build lakes west of Georgetown and Round Rock, they'd have all the water they wanted. There's at least 3 canyons. It wouldn't disturb even any farmland. But do you think they've done it? No, they still try to, instead of creating water like they're supposed to, they're trying to get it from everybody else. And it's got to stop. We need to fight to keep this water. We got Helene, we got, excuse me, I'm still a Fort Hood man, Fort Cavaras. I might not have said that right. I trained at Fort Hood, so it'll always be Fort Hood, I'm sorry. And we've got Belton, and we've got the whole county, and we've got industrial districts in Belton, Killeen, and Temple. And one of the reasons those districts are growing so is because we got water, for water if they need it, for pleasure, and so forth. BRA is going to claim, not BRA, I'm sorry. The environmental group are going to claim, and BRA will say they can't get a permit to do this because of environmental things. Well, my argument is we're humans. We were given the right to be over all of this. Not bugs, not minnows, not pilgrim mites. And in the first place, it's a misnomer to say that that kills all of them and the waxwing cedar deal. You go out to Belton and see if all that's dead. They migrate up. You go to Morgan's Point and deer will nearly run over you. Coons, raccoons, you just ask anybody out there. Now, I don't know about Fort Hood side because the boom and all probably runs the deer out of there. But that might be a blessing because ranchers that got their land taken away from them had first right to put their cattle in there to graze when it's there. There's not any grazing out there right now. But so they really won by that because it's a cheap rent for them. I got off on that and I can't stop in 20 minutes. Stop me when I've said the same thing you all have to the Telegram, the Lean City Manager and Mayor, to Belton City Manager and Mayor, and some others, and Temple Telegram Editor. I did not send them to the TV stations yet, but I'm going to. But I wanted to see what we got through today. I'll answer any questions, but I can tell you this, where there's a will, there's a way. And if we don't have the will, we'll forget it, but be responsible for what happens in the future. And I don't think you'd like what's going to happen in the future if we don't get this work done for Bell County. I adopted a long time ago a sentence that's made of 10 letters, 10 words, 2 letters to each word. If it is to be, it is up to me. And I wish y'all would adopt that for your sake. If it is to be, it is up to me, each one of them, to help us stop this thing. We can do it, but we got to fight and we're going to have to put everything to it. I'll answer any questions any time I have left, or am I out of time?
Well, we appreciate it. I know that water's a passion of yours. It has been since your days on the council.
I can't hear you.
So I'm sorry. I said, thank you. I know that water and our water rights are a passion of yours. And you understand the importance of it for our economic development, just our overall quality of life.
Yeah.
We're aware, obviously, we're aware of what's going on, and we'll do everything within our power to maintain our water rights and can also then conserve what we have. So we'll keep fighting.
Well, when I got into this, I wasn't aware that you were aware of the court order that we had, and it has not been rescinded. I did double check that. The court still says they can't put a pipe in over it, but they're coming in the back door if we don't fight it.
Right. Yeah.
I think we may have to go back to court to get the court to say again, that's just trying to go around the court order.
Yep. Thank you, Jack.
Yes.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you all for hearing.
Thank you.
I'll be open at any time. I don't know if I'm supposed to stay for the regular meeting or not at 5. I'm not on the agenda at 5.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You can stay in this meeting or you can go.
Okay,
Whatever works for you.
okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You bet. Council, any thoughts or
I
questions?
appreciate you hearing.
You bet. Any thoughts or questions around that?
I do have a question for you, Jack.
Thank
Is this something that the Commissioners Court should be the organizing body to focus Bell County?
I can't answer that question. I would think they would want to be. I sent this to the judge,
Okay.
Blackburn, but I haven't heard from him.
Okay.
I really sent it to them early enough, hoping that maybe they might come and listen and hear this, but nobody has. So I don't know.
Okay.
But I will call him on the phone and talk to him and get his feelings if I don't hear from him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, the staff team is very much engaged in this issue, and we are meeting with our legal counsel as well. And Mayor and I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Morris a week or two ago to share some more details that that we can go over at an appropriate later time as well.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I failed to mention Bryn and Kim spent an hour and a half with me last Wednesday. And we got into everything we could, I think.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for that because it helped
Thank you.
me and it helped y'all too.
It did, thank you.
And I told you a story about drawing arrows on those caps over the water storage toward the airport. I've told that story 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
And I've told the story about you swimming in the water tanks, which is far more interesting.
I'd rather stay out there.
You've given them too much ammunition.
That's right. We got you now, Jack.
You
Thank
have
y'all.
a great memory. I love the story.
You're doing a great job. I appreciate you and I support you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What, Mike?
They have new H tanks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I've been down there too.
Oh,
I have not for
my.
All right. Let's go ahead and dive into speaking of that, let's dive into our regular work session. Item 1 is to discuss as may be needed any regular meeting agenda items for tonight's meeting, council or staff. Do we have anything needs to be discussed or pulled? Nothing? All right, very good. Item 2 is to receive the City of Temple Board and Commission annual report by Ms. Caraway.
Are there any sound effects we need to bring
No,
forward?
no, we're good. No sound. Lots of movement, no sound. All right, friends, here we are again, boards and commissions, semi-annual report. As you know, we divide the boards and commissions up into 2 appointments. We are at the October 1st appointment, and for Zoe and Mike, who have not set through a boards and commissions annual report under the new policy, I'll just refresh everyone's memory as I tell them. The council adopted a new boards and commissions policy a few years back, and in doing so, each year, each board and commission has to submit to the council an annual report. It also task the report to include a cover letter, et cetera, and you'll see all of that in the report in front of you. And here that is, a cover letter, a summary of activities, response to council go and work plans, recommendations, and an attendance record. And so inside of your report in front of you, you'll find that for each board and commission that is in this cycle, which is the Airport Advisory Board, the Animal Services Advisory Board, the Citizens Police Advisory Board, the Civil Service Commission, the Emergency Services Advisory Board, and Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, the other boards will come back to you in March. So these are just a few board stats. This is just for the 6 boards that we're discussing today. These boards are comprised of 86 or 44 members that met a total of 86 times. Planning and zoning always wins with meeting the most times, and that's 46. Much like council, they meet twice a month, work sessions and regular meetings. And so they are constantly meeting as well. So diving into each board, first you have the Airport Advisory Board. And again, I've just taken some of the highlights at my own discretion from their actual report and going to present to you today. I encourage you to read their full report in the paperwork in front of you. So the Airport Advisory Board received presentations regarding the airport future land use and the TxDOT Aviation Grant Program. They also recommended to council various grants as well as hangar leases. They reviewed airport and aircraft familiarization training, reviewed airport projects and updates, and reviewed operation and financial results quarterly on the airport. Their response to their goals really is just to keep council and staff aware of what is happening out at the airport, as well as recommend and review various policies and programs that keeps the communication between both the airport and the city and the community alive. Recommendations for future goals and work plans is to continue making recommendations on those hangar leases, as well as the future airport land use and grants, as well as updates on construction projects. And I think they are all very excited to have, as I'm sure all of you, the FBO grand opening coming up very soon. And once they have that open, they will move their meetings out to the airport. And of course, attend the air show that is very big every year. So next is Animal Services Advisory Board. At each meeting, they always receive a report from the veterinarian, as well as monthly reports from the animal shelter and the Greater Temple Belton Foundation for Animal Care. Their main goals and focus this last year was on the animal shelter redesign, which also has its grand opening finally coming up very soon. And also they discussed amending the Code of Ordinances for the animals chapter. Moving into the future, their goal and work plan is to continue discussion on having an in-facility veterinarian, either part-time or full-time. The Citizens Police Advisory Commission, again, at every meeting, they receive reports covering staffing, response time, criminal activity, traffic enforcement, among other things. Their presentations and discussions that they were able to hear this last year was from communications and marketing, as well as hostage crisis and negotiation, the homelessness and strategic planning process, school safety, and overviews from criminal investigation, administrative, and patrol bureau. They also added a mission statement that is on every agenda, and also members were able to attend the Temple Police Department's award ceremony, as well as attend TISD's board meeting where TPD received an award. Again, their response to the work plan is very similar to what you've seen before on boards, and that's just to keep a constant line of communication open between the board, staff, city manager, and the chief of police. Continue to review and make recommendations on policies, and to review the rules, etc. Recommendations for future work plans, like they have coffee with a cop. They want to do coffee with a CPAC member. Also discuss different CPAC events and future legislative items. Moving on to the Civil Service Commission, they held 11 police entrance exams, 1 fire entrance exam, 4 police promotional exams, and 3 fire promotional exams. They also conducted 7 promotional exam appeal hearings. And you can see there they were for corporal, sergeant, battalion chief, driver, and captain. The Civil Service Commission has 3 main goals under their work plan. The Civil Service Local Rules is in its final draft, and it should be finalized and presented in the upcoming year. Continue to appeal all hearings, and also have the annual training for their members. And their recommendations, again, focus around that Civil Service Local Rules that's in its final draft form, and then review and update any things necessary, and continue to attend trainings. The Emergency Services Advisory Board, you can see everything they did this year that really focused on participating and attending station tours and station open houses. They received presentations from Temple EMS and Bell County Communications Center, as well as emergency preparedness presentation. They also overview and update on recruitment, participated in the push-in ceremony, which I know is a big deal for the new ladder truck at Central Station, and review each month the fire and emergency management services. Their goals and work plan is to continue to review the activities, response levels, and response times, and then continue to attend and support community outreach programs, and continue to advise the fire chief and other staff in needs of community expectations regarding the emergency management. And you can see some photos there of probably some open houses and different things. So our last board for this cycle is the Planning and Zoning Commission. P&Z reviewed 52 subdivision plats plus 29 administrative plats that don't go to P&Z, they go directly to council, as well as 45 zoning cases, 2 sets of code amendments, and 3 neighborhood plans. They divide their response to goals into different strategic plans, different plans, the first being strategic, where they provided support for key master plans such as TMed, the Garden District, and Temple Heights. Also vertical mixed-use plan development such as HP Robertson Edition, and also the final plat of Beyond the Bend. For their comprehensive plan, staff summarizes compliance with the comprehensive plan for every zoning case for P&Z. They also provide additional information like traffic impacts. It was noted in their report that Planning and Zoning Commission members would like more of a hand in annexations. However, this would require a change to the charter. So planning staff, in response to that request, has started providing reports to P&Z regarding annexations. And lastly, they just recommend that 2 commissioners attend the Texas State APA conference, and also Anytime APA, which is the American Planners Association. Planning Association, and Texas Municipal League provide additional webinar opportunities. They will let P&Z Commission members be aware of those opportunities. So again, you have the report in front of you. I encourage you to look through it. If you have any individual questions on an individual board, let me know. I can get the answer for you. If you have any general questions on boards and commissions or any feedback, let me know now and I'll answer that.
Everybody good?
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
It's really nice to have. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Liz or Brian or somebody, can we discuss a little bit at some point? I don't know if this is the appropriate one, Kathy, to talk about the P&Z's members are interested in annexation issues. Is this appropriate to talk about that?
You're talking about the work plan for the.
Right, they said they have some interest in that. Why specifically, why or?
Well, it makes sense.
Yes.
In terms of how we're growing, and as the Planning and Zoning Commission, just state law does not enable planning and zoning commissions to be a direct part of that decision-making process. And so we're working on just making sure that we present the information as soon as we have an annexation that where a property owner has basically petitioned the city. And so we request to be able to start that process, then we report that to them and have a conversation during our workshops. So
Good.
that's
That gets more input, which they then should feel free to bring to council at our work session when it comes to us or through you or however. Good, thank you.
Now, tonight we will appoint the members that we interviewed, for the specific slots. So that'll be done. Any questions before we move on? All right. Item 3 is to receive a presentation regarding the results of the 2023 National Community Survey by Stacey Hoffman. Stacey?
Yes, thank you. So I had the opportunity to participate in a data-driven decision-making class through ICMA and Polco. And Polco is the organization that we partner with to conduct the National Community Survey. So I'm going to present some results, but in a little bit different, a deeper dive than what we've normally done when we presented it, because part of the requirements of the course was that I completed capstone. And so I used our National Community Survey results, looking at them through the lens of our strategic plan. And so that's how we're going to look at those results today. So just some background on the National Community Survey. It reports on the livability of Temple and captures our residents' sentiments, opinions, approval around 10 facets of our community. So economy, mobility, community design, utilities, safety, natural environment, parks and recreation, health and wellness, education, arts and culture, and inclusivity and engagement. And so for our survey that we completed this year, we sent out, or Polco sent out 28 randomly selected, or 2,800 randomly selected households received the survey invitation beginning in May 17th of this year. The survey we kept open for 7 weeks. About 6% of that 2,800 were not deliverable, so we got those back. So of the remaining little over 2,600 households, we had 276 completed the survey for an overall response rate of 11%. So we used that information. And so this is kind of the description of the project that I did for my capstone. So as council will know, we began the 2025 strategic planning process. And I think one thing that we can do to help inform that planning process is really to evaluate how we've done in meeting the goals of our current strategic plan. And so one way that we can do that, one way that we can see if we've achieved those goals is to utilize the data points from the National Community Survey, map those to our strategic plan goals and see how well our residents thought we've done. So the project methods, like I said, I mapped those strategic plan goals to each NCS data point, and that's essentially each national community survey question. So when I say data point, I'm meaning a question. So I mapped those data points to the strategic plan goals. Then I analyzed and evaluated those, looking for any data points where we were either above or below the national benchmark, or where we had survey results, because we had utilized Polco to do the NCS for a number of years. We have historical data that we compare ourselves to. So I looked at the 2020 survey and compared it to the 2023 survey that we just completed. And then, like I said, I looked for, with our strategic plan goals, anything that where there were large increases or decreases over time. Then we looked at those data points, anything that was above 70% or lower than 40%. And essentially using those to see where we've been successful in our current strategic plan and maybe some areas where we need to continue to focus moving into our 2025 strategic plan. So of those data points that I talked about, these are ones where the community satisfaction scores were higher than 70% or higher. So these are things where our residents scored us very high. So overall customer service by Temple employees, overall quality of services from City of Temple, the quality of our city parks, public library services, overall quality of parks and recreation opportunities, overall health and wellness opportunities, Temple as a place to live, your neighborhood as a place to live, Temple as a place to raise children. There were quite a few, which was good. The overall quality of life, police services, animal control, ambulance or emergency medical services, fire services, fire prevention and education, ease of travel by car, garbage collection, drinking water, sewer services, and utility billing. So now looking at the other side of that, anywhere that the community satisfaction was 40% or lower. So Temple as a place to visit, the overall quality of the transportation system, shopping opportunities, ease of travel by public transportation, ease of travel by bicycle, ease of walking, availability of affordable quality housing, availability of affordable quality childcare, street repair, bus or transit services, land use, planning and zoning, and code enforcement. So that's one way that I looked at the data. I also, like I said, compared it to the national benchmark. So as we compare to the national benchmark, these are areas where we were higher than that benchmark. So cost of living, well-planned commercial growth, quality of new development. These are a few areas where we scored lower than the national benchmark. So you'll see some repeats as we go through. Temple as a place to visit, shopping opportunities, ease of bicycle travel, ease of walking, and street repair. This is where I got really excited when I started looking at this information. So this is where I was looking at that past survey, the 2020 survey, which I will just kind of qualify that survey was done right before COVID. So it's a pre-COVID survey. But so looking at 2020 and comparing it to 2023. So seeing where this particular one is any data point where we rose 10 percentage points or more from 2020 to 2023. So overall customer service by Temple employees, overall image or reputation, variety of businesses and service establishments, vibrancy of downtown, your neighborhood is a place to live, police services, crime prevention, animal control, emergency preparedness, drinking water, availability of pass and walking trails, and recreational opportunities. So what made me so excited as I read that, thinking about what we, the work that we've done, we developed our strategic plan in 2019. We, council adopted it in 2020. So think about on this list, some of the initiatives and things that we focused on since the adoption of that strategic plan. So things like the focus that we had on our marketing and our brand, and now, 3 years later, our citizens have noticed that and are scoring us higher in our overall image or reputation. Same thing with the vibrancy of our downtown, thinking about everything that's come into downtown in the last 3 years, First Friday, all the different events and activities that we have going on. And then another one I picked out there is your neighborhood as a place to live. So think about all of our investments in the Love Where You Live program. So to me, what this really is really great validation of our strategic plan itself and all the work of the departments in implementing those initiatives. So there are a few areas that we scored lower than we did in 2020. So availability of affordable quality housing, availability of affordable quality mental health care, traffic signal timing, bus or transit services, yard waste pickup, land use, planning and zoning. And so some, a couple of those things aren't necessarily within our control. But another thing that I felt was really interesting, if you look at the things that are, at least the city has influence or control over, a lot of those things we already have things in the works to address those things, like the microtransit and some of the other things that we have going, our mobility master plan. So we've already got things in the works to address those. So I thought that was pretty cool to see as well. So then the last way that I really, Lynn, I sort of looked at this data through is as it compares to our strategic plan goals and really seeing where we're successful with our goals. So what I did, like I said, I mapped each one of those data points or questions to a strategic plan goal. And then I took the average of the scores for each data point in that goal. And so there were 2 goals that we had an average NCS rating of 70 or above. So an organization committed to performance excellence and a safe and healthy community. And luckily we had none that were below that 40%. So we didn't have anything that fell below 40% there. So looking again from the vantage point of our strategic plan goals, any of those areas where we scored 10 percentage points higher from 2020 to 2023. So the organization committed to performance excellence, open and responsive communication with our community, our beautiful spaces and unique experiences in neighborhoods where people love to live. There are a couple where we scored below, I'm sorry, I had a plus there, but it should be below 10% or down 10 percentage points or more. So a safe and healthy community. And you can see, wait, that's not right.
They're still up.
Yeah, they are.
You're right.
It's 2 pages. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. That is right then. 10 percentage points higher or more. So a safe and healthy community, infrastructure and systems that support exceptional services and community growth. So those particular goals were up as well based on those initiatives, based on those data points there. So this is where we had some community characteristics that were 10 percentage points or more below. So in the neighborhoods where people love to live, goal, availability of affordable quality housing, infrastructure and systems that support exceptional services and community growth goal had traffic signal timing and bus or transit services, and then a city that supports well-managed growth and development to promote a thriving economy, land use, planning and zoning. So those were the data points that brought those goals down 10 percentage points or more.
Right, do you have information on, I'm looking at, neighborhoods where people love to live and then the city that supports well-managed growth. Are you able to drill down any further as to why, people may not be satisfied with that?
I can look at it's generally those things are one question.
Yeah.
Like, how would you rate the availability of affordable quality housing? And it's, a scale of, excellent, good, so there's a scale. But it's just a question, so I don't really have an opportunity to drill down any further into exactly what
Yeah.
that could be.
Well, I mean, I think those are,
It's
What?
just, the whole goal is not down, it's
Right.
just that thing underneath.
right, and that's fine, but to me, post-COVID, right, everything's been turned upside down, so, I mean, you don't ever like having, any sort of, decrease in satisfaction. But, I mean, I wish every house was free, right? I mean, I would pick the one I wanted. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
And, of course, on the land use planning and zoning, I mean, people are upset that, homes are being built in that meadow that they've watched over for the last 20 years.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I understand that people are, may not be satisfied with that, but that's just the growing community and that's not going to stop.
Yeah.
I look at that and I wonder what the staff or council could do to bend that curve of dissatisfaction.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything you could do.
Right, well,
I mean, my opinion, but
On the other hand, traffic signal timing and bus or transit services, I think, those are areas that, so it's informative and, some areas it's like, okay, we are not really able to, maybe make a huge impact on certain things.
sure.
But there are other things that, we do have, that are really right inside of our wheelhouse. And, as part of our mobility master plan implementation, we're doing corridor studies in the upcoming year for all of our major streets to look at traffic signal timing. So that's something that, even before getting the data, we kind of intuitively knew that was an area that we need to focus on. And this just confirms that our
No,
citizens are giving us that same feedback. Same with transit.
I get it. And I mean, I understand all of that. My point, I think my point. It's just that we're just growing.
We're not firing Brian.
No, no.
On the availability of affordable quality housing, is that comparing us to other cities in the country? Is our cities more satisfied with their affordability right now?
So it does compare us to a benchmark of other cities that complete a national community survey. I don't know, I mean, I could tell you I can get you that if you're curious.
I was just wondering, is there a place in the US that you can
Right.
buy an affordable house right now?
Yeah. Yeah,
But that's a very good point. This slide in particular is just showing the city of Temple data over time.
Okay.
So what
So it's not
someone said
compared
in
to-
2020.
It's not compared to Tyler, Texas or,
we do have that information, but this slide is just reporting our own time.
okay.
And land use and planning, in my memory of doing this survey for, a decade or more, usually land use and planning, it's not unusual for all citizens to rate that a little bit lower because a lot of times people just don't understand what goes into that so it's helpful. I mean, there's no gospel to any of this. You take it as a data point and you understand that, sometimes it's helpful to look at yourself over time. Sometimes it's helpful to look at yourself as compared to a benchmark. And, I don't think you draw absolute conclusions on any of it, but it is informative in our work.
It is. I'd be willing to bet there's not a city in the country that would say there's available affordable housing.
That you want to live in.
Yeah, that you want to live in.
Right.
Yeah, it's not dying, a dying city.
Yeah, maybe Detroit, but you don't want to live there.
Well,
there,
except
yeah.
there's a lot of investment in downtown Detroit now, so up go the prices.
definitely. So just sort of conclusions and recommendations, sort of what I've already said. So you saw that customer service, we were rated really high specifically on the services that the city provides, the customer service that City of Temple employees provide. there are some initiatives in the strategic plan related to customer service. Then again, those three things I mentioned, the strategic plan initiatives that were focused on marketing and our brand image, it really, that's validation that of the hard work of the marketing department, that our citizens are noticing them. And then the initiatives focused on the downtown, again, have had a positive impact on how residents view the downtown area. And then strategic plan initiatives relating to our Love Where You Live program, I would say definitely have had an impact on, you know, residents' satisfaction within the neighborhoods that they live in. And then based on the results, there are some areas I think that as we move forward in developing that 2025 strategic plan, that we need to keep in mind any ways that we might be able to impact affordable housing, bus and transit services, land use, planning and zoning, availability of mental health care, traffic signal timing, shopping opportunities, and quality mobility options.
Susan, are you working on them all?
Sure.
I'm giving it to you.
I call Adrian twice a day.
Okay, good.
And so that's all I have. I'm happy to go back and look at anything more or answer any questions.
Great, thank you.
That's an
Councilman,
interesting.
questions or thoughts?
It is. And
I was
saw
so
that
excited.
the park system is ranked very high.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know we're all very proud of our park system, but I was at the Lumbermen's Association of Texas convention. Yeah, just the other day. And a gentleman from Waco said that his son runs cross country and had 3 meets in Temple because our park system is so amazing. How proud I must be of our system. It's just nice to hear
Yeah,
that.
it's wonderful.
I think Waco has a nice system up there
Yeah,
too,
they
but
do.
I know we're all very proud of ours.
I'm proud of a lot of the things on there that we're up on, those things that have been on our strategic plan that we're working on, so.
Yeah, I was
Working.
super excited. It's just, like I said, it feels like validation of the plan itself and all the work that the departments have been doing.
Even better, Stacy has been invited to present this presentation at the International City Managers Association Annual Conference. So we're gonna get a little limelight for our good work.
Hey, Stacy.
And I do want to give a shout out for Stacy for the work she did in compiling this and tying it back to the strategic plan. I think it's really, as you have all said, it's very interesting, and I think it's really helpful and where we're going forward.
I would bet that the question related to trash pickup or waste pickup, however it was phrased, I bet that's following the ice storm.
It absolutely is.
And the people were.
People started.
We're all not firing you out.
I think that should have been based, if indeed the question was, the answers were based on that storm,
It
it
was.
should be way up rather than down. Because I just think we did an amazing job under the circumstances.
Yeah, the survey was in May, the storm
But people still remember.
had just, passed us by.
Exactly.
So the good news is that 3 years from now, we'll probably be up quite a bit, so.
Unless we have more
Unless we
storms.
have another winter. No, but I think we're ready this time. We've got our emergency contract on board, and so I think.
We need to time our
survey.
Speaking of timing, actually, we have in the past been doing it every 3 years, and now we're actually gonna be doing it every other year. So every 2 years, we'll have a survey, so it'll be.
You
a
got
little
2
bit
years,
more
Ralph.
timely.
Where do you present?
Oh, at the ICMA annual meeting in Austin on Tuesday, the first Tuesday in October, whatever date that
Oh,
is.
they're coming right up.
Yes.
Wow.
It brings city managers from international audience. I mean, primarily from the United States, but there's thousands of attendees. And so. She only gets to go to Austin.
Don't make.
I know.
know.
She tried to say no.
Maybe
We absolutely do. Heather Bates is going to give a presentation on our communications and marketing efforts. She actually was able to do that at it's called 3CMA, which is the National Government Communications. That's not what it stands for, but Government Communications Conference a few weeks ago. And then she has been invited to ICMA as well. And then David Buford and Mark will be getting a presentation on our downtown parking plan and program. So we will have 3 featured
Wow.
presentations.
Are all 3 of you all going to wear Temple Love Where You Live t-shirts?
We'll try to make that happen.
It might not be seen as very professional, but it would be cute and good marketing.
Need to make sure we've got it all trademarked before we.
Uh,
Because I did a presentation
feed.
at ICMA a few years ago when we had just rolled out our pool trailer and a few other programs, and I had a few people come up say, "Is that trademark?" Like, yes, definitely. So,
Make a note on that.
yes.
Okay,
You may not steal it.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Next item is to discuss potential May 2024 City of Temple Charter election and charter review options.
Yes, thank you. We do have an opportunity coming up to review our charter for any amendments that we may feel is timely. And Stacy's doing such a great job. I may ask her help in this, and she's doing so well. So anyway, as you all know, what is our charter? A charter is a home rule municipality's constitution. It's a city's constitution, like we have a federal constitution, and like we have a state constitution. It defines how our government operates. It defines the authority and limitations for the operation of that government and the employees that are running those government operations as well. And we adopted our first charter in 1922, and we have had 3 rounds of fairly significant amendments that occurred in 1990, in 2000, and in 2014. Our charter adoption process and review and amendment process is governed very generally by our state constitution as well as state law, which is found in the local government code. It speaks to it, but without any real specificity. So we do have a lot of leeway when we're reviewing and choosing whether and when to review our charter and amend our charter. The Constitution does say that a city who has adopted a charter may amend it in any way that it wants, as long as it does not conflict with Constitution or state law. And then state law also says we can review, undergo that, and present those amendments in whatever way that we choose. And then ultimately, the approval of those amendments is up to the vote of the electors, and a majority vote will approve and adopt those amendments. So the basic charter amendment process, I did mention the election. That is how amendments are made to our charter, and they can either be initiated by a council ordinance or by a citizen's petition. Amendments that are proposed by council, again, there is no required method, but generally the way cities do it is either with where the council reviews the charter itself and proposes those amendments via an ordinance. Or they often will appoint an advisory committee to undergo that review and then bring back recommendations to the council, which the council will adopt by ordinance and propose to the electors. Whether you do it as the body yourself, or whether you appoint an advisory committee, it comes back to council for that final decision-making about what ultimately goes on the ballot for the citizens to consider. Or there's a hybrid method where it's kind of a combination. You can have 1 or 2 council members with a smaller group of citizens, a subcommittee type situation that can also review and bring back those recommended amendments to the council as a whole. There's also a method for citizens to bring amendments forward by petition. The petition must be signed by a minimum of 5% of the registered voters of the city, or 20,000 people, whichever is less. For Temple, our current registered voter number is 52,527, I guess, as of this morning, which would mean our petition would need to be signed by around 2,627 petitioners. Our charter also speaks generally to the amendment process, says similar as to what the Constitution and the state law says, we may amend it as long as it's in accordance with state law. It does have a timeline attached though, and requires that our charter must be reviewed by council and on its own or by appointing a committee at least once every 10 years. So if you recall, the last significant amendment that we had was in 2014, which means we are due for our 10-year review by 2024, which is next year. That's why we're bringing this up now. So when you're thinking about what you should be looking at when you're reviewing a charter, what sort of things should be changed? What sort of things should be in there? What sort of things should not be in there? What you want is things that don't change very often, the basic rules that govern the way that the city operates. Things that are important that the voters should get to decide, that shouldn't be able to be changed on a whim by staff or council. It should contain the basic descriptors of the powers that are held by the city and by the council. And also it defines the structure of the governing body. As you know, we now have a council manager form of government that is determined by our charter. It determines our elections and the qualifications of candidates. It determines the term limits for council members and the types of districts we have. Is it single member districts? Are they at large districts? And the number of districts and number of council members. And it defines the basic structure of the way that we govern the city. What does not belong in the charter? The opposite of those things. So things that change frequently, because the Constitution does say that we cannot amend our charter more often than every 2 years. So you don't want to put something in there that you realize, oh, that's a mistake, and you can't come back and change it for at least 2 years. Responsibilities that are often delegated to the city manager that, again, you may change your mind about. Criminal statutes don't belong in charters. Those should be addressed by ordinances. And also don't just copy state law into your charter, because again, that's likely to change and that just causes confusion down the line. Okay, so we've talked about a tentative May 2024 election timeline, and then I want to talk about another opportunity. But if we wanted to shoot for a review that would allow us to bring forward any amendments that council chooses in time for the May 4th, 2024 election, we would have to order the special election by February 16th. That would mean we could have the two ordinance readings on February 1st and February 15th. That would mean, well, that's a general deadline. So if council wants to complete the review, of course, staff would assist you with that review. You could also call public hearings in order to receive public input if you desire to get that aspect of the process. And we would target completion of that overall review by early to mid-January in order to finalize the ordinance and bring it back for you in February 1st and February 15th. If you choose to appoint a charter review committee, then I would suggest making that appointment by no later than your second meeting in October, with the charge to complete the review and make any recommendations back to council by the end of December. That would give council the month of January to review those recommendations and then make your decisions about what you ultimately want to put on the ballot. And then that would give us time to finalize the ordinance by February 1st. If you choose to do it, I think, okay, back here, if you look at the history, in 1990, council appointed a 30-member review committee. I was really surprised at the size of these review committees. That seems like a lot of people. And usually it's kind of hard to keep that many people focused, and although moving in the same path, but I mean, it seems like they've done a really good job. So I was surprised by that, but it seems to have been very successful in the past. So a 30-member committee came up with 13 propositions in 1990, but you can see in 2000, only 4 propositions. And then the last time in 2014, 19 propositions. I've looked at the charter. We had various conversations about just at the staff level of, are there burning issues that we feel like we really need to have addressed? And I've identified things that I think could be addressed, not emergencies, that if we already are bringing, or decide to undergo this review process, then, I have a list of some things I think should be looked at, but is it anything that I think means we need to do it right now? Not necessarily. And I think it would be similar. I think there would be a need for a lot of changes and then a few tweaks. In 2014, a lot of changes. I think if we have a review and election coming up in the next year or two, I think it would be similar, just a few tweaks. And then probably the next 10 years, we may be ready for a more comprehensive review. I just thought that was an interesting pattern.
Do you think there's any possibility that the number, would you flip back one? In 1990 and 2014, that the makeup of the committee resulted in more propositions for a variety of reasons?
I looked at who was on the committees, lots of names that I recognized. I think it's always people who are very interested in the governance of the city and have a stake in the community and how it's governed. But outside of that, I don't really know that I didn't see anything in my researching that led me to believe that there were people on there that had their pet issues that or specific issues that they wanted to advance. I think that in 2014, there were a couple of issues that, well, term limits, I think was the big one.
It was.
That was, and then I think some ethics. I'm sorry.
Qualifications of council and ethics.
I think that was.
And disqualifications.
Yes, and I think that those were kind of timely, because of some things that had been going on at the time. So I think, and because it had been 25 years, it was time to undergo a comprehensive review. And so I know that they did go through section by section and try to identify where things needed to be changed. I think a recall also, I think, was a subject of a big discussion, probably somewhat related to what may have been going on at the other end of the county about right then. It was kind of a timely conversation, I think, around the whole county at that specific time. So I think there were some timely issues that were going on in 2014 that kind of spurred the need for that review. I don't think that there's anything similar going on that we could really identify now. But again, we are required by our charter to review it before the end of 2014. So when we were originally looking at the date as a staff, we were looking at it like, okay, we would need to have the election, the May 2024 election, that we wouldn't have to call a separate election in November. It makes sense. Let's just do it at the same time if we're going to have one. But really, what the charter requires is that we complete the review every 10 years. So I think that we could, if we don't want to rush it, if you want to have a large committee and do another deep dive, and you're worried about being able to do that in 2 months, we could use more of 2024 to complete the review. And I think we could have the election in 2025 as long as we complete the review throughout 2024. I think we would be in compliance with the charter. So I think if you are, as a council, if you want to do the review yourself with the help of staff, I think we could do that very easily over the next couple of months. If you want to appoint a committee and have the committee review, I think it would be maybe a little more difficult, but we could definitely do it in time for a May 2024 election. Or I think we could take a longer period with a committee if that's your choice as well.
Especially with the timing being over kind of the holiday.
That'd be hard.
It would be pretty difficult, I think, if you wanted to take on comprehensive, committee-led review.
But I do like, I was on that committee and it was, and we did a pretty deep dive because they split us into subcommittees and we had 2 or 3 chapters each that we went over in real depth.
Mhm.
Process.
Yeah, and it is, and it's important to do that. I think every 10, 20 years, it is important because things do change, but it's really up to you, and we are prepared to assist you with whatever process that you want to use and whatever timeline that you want to use.
The sales tax election, sales tax review, election, that's right. That's November,
Yes.
correct?
We cannot make a November time.
No, I was thinking about actually aligning that one in May, but I remember we'd already called for that. in
You
November.
could do next November, if you wanted to have a lot of fun.
Yeah. There would be a lot of people out voting.
Okay,
But the ones that would go out to vote might have access to grind.
no.
Just a possibility.
You'll have a lot of people that didn't even know that was on the ballot.
No, I mean now.
So when do we need to discuss and make a decision about whether we do a deep dive with a committee or we just sort of review over time?
I think if we want to discuss again, if you want to think about it, we could put it on as a discussion topic at your next workshop. Because if you want to do a committee and you want to have a May 2024 election, then you would really need to appoint people at your second meeting in October.
Wow.
That's very rushed.
Okay. So you guys want to be prepared to discuss next workshop?
Is there any information that you would like for me to bring back or just put time on the workshop to have a discussion and answer any questions?
It could be, I mean, obviously, if there's some maybe tripping points that you think that you've identified, I think it would be, I would appreciate maybe seeing a list of those before the discussion, so
Okay.
we can all at least be thinking.
Oh, I
about-
agree. So that we can think about those.
Yeah, and I guess, yeah, I remember the 2014 review, and it was pretty deep dive. So, oh, it'll be interesting to see maybe what our possible, weak points are. Because that was, like Mike said, that was very deep. Yeah, lots of people. So,
And just to make sure that.
and there were some issues going on, I think then, that it made sense to, the timing aligned. And I don't know that we have. I'll wait and see your list.
Okay, and just to make sure I was clear, there's nothing that I saw that I would call a tripping point. There were just either sections that usually there is a lot of interest in from the community, or a couple of things that there's just other options that I think if we're going to be considering amendments, that we should consider these as well. But nothing that I think that really just has to be addressed. And also just to clarify, you're required to review every 10 years, but you're not required to have an election. You're not required to bring forward any amendments. You're just required to review the charter.
And the 2014 amendment introduced that requirement. So all of the previous amendments processes have been brought up by something like 2014. There was something in the community that was happening that made council feel like that was the time to review. So this is the first time you've kind of had an arbitrary, a 10-year time frame. So there may not be, it may not be something that you need to gather, for, so that's a little bit different than historical, where those timeframes were driven by something happening that was bringing up the need to look at something.
There were a few dull axes in 14. I don't think we'd have 19 amendments.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised.
The other thing that we did in 2014 was you passed an amendment that allowed anything that was kind of like minor changes to be done administratively, like so if something wasn't in compliance with state law, and that wasn't in there previously. So some of the amendments were just taking out things that were in kind of like the juvenile curfew ordinance. You could leave it in the charter, but you couldn't enforce it, so it's easier to just take it out. So, I think we probably got most of those covered in 2014. So I think that was I don't remember how many of the amendments were kind of just cleanup items more than they were substantive, but there were quite a few.
And the other thing, just a reminder that you can't amend your charter more often than every 2 years. So that's another thing. If there's nothing that you really need to have fixed, it's probably not likely, but there is a chance that you may have an amendment just to, clean up a couple of basic things. But then 6 months from now, something major happens, which makes you realize, we need to change our charter, but you can't. Now you have to wait another year for that. So I think it's intended to make you be thoughtful that it's an important document. It's your constitution, and you shouldn't be just changing it on a whim. It is something that you need to be thoughtful about.
Lost unless it's decided on stuff anymore.
True.
Thank you. Council, anything else around that? Okay. Last, number 5 is to receive departmental updates from IT and planning and development. Ms. Brown, you're first.
Okay, I wanted to start by talking about staff and some changes that we made. So in 21, we were an organization of 22 people. We had 1 occupancy. We had 1 director, 2 assistant directors, 4 system admin or system analysts, 4 GIS analysts, a tech, 4 techs, and then some database administrators. So our organization kind of looked like that. Now, after working with Bryn, Tracy, and Tara, we have a staff of 25. So we added 2 members. We were able to promote within and hire outside, a little bit of both. But we have a chief information officer, which is me. I don't know if y'all know Brandon Harris, but he's our chief technology officer. We have 4 division managers now. And I just put up here real quick, our average years of service, just not to rub it in or anything, but from an IT perspective, we do not have problems getting staff. I know that's been an issue in multiple departments, but if we have a position open, it's usually filled within a month. So
What are the divisions? The 4 divisions?
infrastructure, support, project management, and GIS. So we put managers over each of those departments where we just had 1 manager before.
Okay, thank you.
I think we only have 1 position approved for 24, I think it is. So I don't think we're gonna have issue hiring that or filling that spot either.
It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say is even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every scene. We're gonna fill our house with happiness, but we'll smother the blues with tenderness. There's room for you, room for me, for gentle hearts and opportunity. It's the bigger love of the family.
Who knows the theme song?
So it's the one with the twin girls in San Francisco.
Not full.
Right?
Not Full House.
Okay, shoot.
Urkel, Steve Urkel.
Family Matters. Steve Urkel, yeah, I wanted to put a
Is that the
little clip
one?
in there that, remember, he always says, did I do that?
Yeah.
I think someone should have done.
Yeah. Yes. So just wanted to go over kind of what each position is responsible for, so you know why we structured the way that we did. So the chief information officer, processes, policies, managing staff, focusing on kind of project management and reporting the internal departments. Chief technology officer, Brandon, he goes and finds our solutions to make sure that we're current and we find the right solutions to fix the right problems. Together, we work together to make sure that we are working towards the city's goals. Our lead technology specialist, I want to put this in here real quick because it's kind of a weird title. She is both an admin as well as help desk. She also covers all of the wireless billing for all of the city. So that's a pretty big task for Verizon to reconcile that every month is a big task. Our infrastructure team, right now, I think it's the same. Linda will contest construction. I think everybody is wrapped up in all the construction projects that we have. So that's our main focus right now, but they do everything from installing servers to installing patches, installing door access and cameras, and then obviously the support of all of our infrastructure. Tech support, I think y'all know what they do. Hopefully they've all helped all of us at least once. And then applications, more on the software side of not just implementing new things and supporting new things, but also make sure that they're efficient and they change as our policies change. Project manager, the idea behind these two positions was that we would be able to coordinate all of these projects throughout the city. Time them right, make sure we're in budget. But right now, the two people are 100% on niche. It's just that big of a project for us right now, and that's going to be ongoing. As soon as we get it up and going for us, we've got 11 other entities to add. So, GIS, you all know what they do, maps. So we talked about staff, titles, all that good stuff. I just want to show you. Yeah. There's multiple ways that you can get a hold of us, but ticketing software is just one. Now, our normal quarterly stuff is what we've completed this project or this quarter, and we implemented some new 55 software, MVEC software, Switch Comply, and then some security software. We installed a camera. Again, the construction projects, the Verizon reconciliation, started switching the PD cell phones over to Androids for niche, and then submitted our state mandated cybersecurity training and renewed our Microsoft licenses. CIS accomplishments, they created a couple maps for Blumenfest, updated Chameleon data, which is our animal control software, made an app for Hillcrest and Crossroads, and then a new map book for utilities and vibration.
Wait. Can you back up just a sec? What is Chameleon?
That's our animal control software.
Oh, okay.
We got straight from Lily.
They gotta know where to go, yeah.
My favorite software name is Cry Wolf for the false alarm software.
So you know that that one's.
I do, I remember that one.
Anything that makes you cry, you're gonna remember, right? Q1 projects that we'll be working on, a find time add-on in Outlook is just to help you find open spots in people's calendars, so you don't spend a bunch of time trying to accommodate everybody's calendars. This tool is really quick. An employee directory, I did created it for our phones, so if y'all don't have that, you might want to get it. It's pretty cool. Decisions, which Ren's using for meetings, to manage our meetings. We transitioned our IVR for utility billing over to the cloud. The second piece is to comply with some upgrades. Got some new additional cameras that we need to install. Door access at Human Resources, and then the work that we did on the DIS. Future projects. So these are things that we want to work on, it not necessarily approved by budget or will fit here, but these are just future things that we want to look at. Technology purchasing policy, a new help desk ticketing software, document / contract management software, financial software, utility billing software, payment software, and solid waste garbage pickup software. And then just some miscellaneous projects. I put 8018, but after our meeting, I think that's the appropriate word for it anymore, but we want to add artificial intelligence and our security training standards to our policies. We're going to work on standardizing our audio and video equipment and all of our large shared conference rooms. Today, if you go, depending on which conference room you go to, all set up different. It's kind of clunky. So we want to standardize on that. We want to work on creating a kiosk for citizens to sign up to talk at council. Purchase some more or additional Microsoft licenses for our non-seasonal employees. Today, we only purchase them for full-time. That's not even right. It depends on the position, whether you get a license or not. So truck drivers, the solid waste guys, they don't get one. But we're finding more and more reasons to get them for them. So we're gonna look at getting the license in 24. We have parks, city secretary's office and fire that we're gonna add into My Government Online for their permitting piece. An audio solution for court record, intercom system at the library. Verizon signal issues. We've got a couple dead spots around town, so we're looking for Verizon to fix that. Finish our multi-factor and server room design. GS projects, the map for Bryn. It's there, the data is there. We just need to create the dashboard for you. The finance RZ map for Tracy. I think we're very close to having something for you on that. Our address and street standards need to be updated. Add floodplain data in My Government Online, and then some CIP project maps.
You can see me and Tracy are a little high maintenance.
You guys have been very
Our
patient.
maps for our own selves.
Very patient. Thank you. Ongoing projects, niche, we talked about our construction projects, and then our cycle replacements for PCs and MDTs, and then some revamps, like I was talking about. We go through and do reviews of software after we've had them for a while to make sure they're still efficient, effective, and then phishing campaigns. Everybody loves Kathy.
Yes, especially the little button up in the right corner. Oh, no, there's a whole nother issue. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. No, we're very adept at identifying, reporting those.
GIS, always working on cleaning up data, adding new data. We do reviews of data that's being fed from CityWorks into our GIS, collect new data. We transfer, so we don't have to do dual entry. We take all of the data that we put into Esri and feed it into H5 or financial software, and then Mapbox. Key performance indicators. It looks really boring because this is the first quarter that we're reporting on new numbers, so I don't have pretty charts to show you. But our city network availability was 99.94%. And I just averaged them for the 3 months. Public safety availability, 99.83. Next gen 911 accuracy is 99.88. Email attack percentage, our software caught 99.31% of potentially harmful emails. We had to get involved and we had to intervene on 3.34%. We were supporting 1,617 different software applications.
Wow.
About 750 users and 3,169 devices.
Good, thank you. That's a lot.
It's basically Greek.
Council, any questions for Kelly? You even know what to ask? I don't.
Kelly, just one question. I noticed that when you mentioned the contact with us on your cell phone, myself and several other people here reached for their phone. What is that, the global exchange thing, or is it something aside from that?
No, it's a power app.
Okay.
Yeah, Brandon made it. It's really cool. I'll get it for you.
All right, good afternoon. And it looks like we've got about 40 minutes, so I'll take every one of those. How about that? So called this quarterly, but really it's more semi-annual. So I like to reflect the actual frequency in which we're having discussions with you all and reporting back. And so looking at the major accomplishments within the last 180 days, notice that you don't see on here communication with the public and educating them as to what land use planning and zoning means. So we'll add that to the next 180 days apparently. But we really want to focus initially on looking at some of the new structure, some of the changes that we've experienced in the last few months, and then we'll go over the rest of these, as well. So snapshot of our org chart in April. And notice this isn't the best org chart either. And so that's me. So you'll see how this department evolves. But so April, then in May, we had a lot of natural attrition, primarily in the permits side. And so, a lot of X's, a lot of changes, but there is a green circle in the middle there that I wanted to point out to you all, that at that same time that we were losing staff, we gained a chief building official. So CJ Jarecki joined us from Vail, Colorado. He's doing a fantastic job. And I'm not sure if your reputation preceded you and all
I haven't melted
you
yet.
folks said, hey, CJ's coming to town, we're going to go somewhere else. I'm not sure, but either way, you're doing a fantastic job. So a lot of
I hope he's getting time and a half with all those red X's.
We got some of those filled in.
That's what we do to make budget.
Yeah, well, and also I want to point out that it was really all hands on deck. So everybody in the department had to pick up slack. We had folks in planning that were shifting over to permitting, doing temporary jobs. And so as you can imagine, with a lot of X's on there, that was required. One thing I'll also point out, now that I realize when the community survey was taken, it was in May. I don't know, I'm not sure if there's a connection here, but there was a lot of transition going on, and that don't want to make any excuses, but it could be a partial explanation. But either way, we had our the Main Street program, and it made a lot of sense. Went over to destination marketing, so that, and then we also had other folks that took jobs elsewhere, and either way, we looked at, once CJ arrived, we took a look to say, does our assistant director, who we didn't have at the time, but the new assistant director, who then became Kelly. So Kelly got a much deserved promotion. And so we looked at, her responsibilities are on the community vitality side, because we've got 3 teams: community vitality, which is neighborhood planning and historic preservation, planning and zoning, and then permits and inspections. And so we were a bit top heavy
on the permits and inspection side, which made sense at the time. You all may recall that, I guess it was 4 years ago, when we had reorganization pulling permits and inspections into planning and development. Totally made sense at the time. And at that time, I needed my assistant director who had that experience to manage that. Well, bring in CJ, who doesn't need to answer to another manager who would answer to me. And so it made a lot of sense having Kelly provide a little bit more balance on the assistant director side. And ultimately, you see there were some promotions in here. Also some, thank you, council, some budget items that we could implement. And so then today, this is what our org chart looks like. So thanks to Kelly, it looks far better. So that's what happens when the director is doing org charts as opposed to Kelly, who is much better at them than I am. But provide a little bit more balance. So that I think is a good thing. We have 4 vacancies right now, but 3 of them are posted. And so we've got a vacant inspector position, but CJ had an acceptance from the top candidate who is starting on October 16th. And he is leaving the city of Leander, coming here, but I think he lives in Coppers Cove. So it works out really well. Permit tech position just posted. We've had promotions among the new permit techs to fill other positions, including Tiffany Colon, who is now our development services coordinator, and answers to Kelly. So we provide that balance between the planning side and the permit and inspection side, because that person reviews zoning compliance primarily. And then also plans examiner. So bottom right-hand corner, that was a budget request. Thank you, council, for approving that. And we already have that position posted. And then lastly, we have a vacant planner position. That's going to take a little time. We anticipate that to fill that. But in the meantime, we have Caitlin, who is our fall intern. You can't, if you're not giving a presentation that embarrasses the intern, if you're not doing your full job as a manager. But
I'd like to note, I did not add that.
So Caitlin is with us for the fall, and she is filling some of those needs. She is a senior at A&M in the planning program, and she is working with Kelly in neighborhood planning and historic preservation. She's also helping with the strategic investment zone program. So we're glad to have Caitlin, but then when she leaves, ideally, we will have a new planner who will seamlessly fill in that position at the beginning of next year.
Yes, but don't forget, she's a senior.
She's a senior, I know.
She's here the fall.
When are you supposed to graduate?
May.
May. So, okay, well,
Keep her phone
we're in
number.
trouble if we haven't filled the position by then, but maybe another one. So.
That's what I'm referring to.
Brian, before you do
Yes,
that
sir.
one is like on the right there with, I see, no, CJ is over all 6 of those positions, or
Yep.
well, actually there's more. But is like Aubrey over the inspectors and the inspectors over the plan examiner, or where's the hierarchy? On
Yeah, great question. And so Aubrey is our chief inspector, and he really earned that job description, that title as interim while we were in the process of hiring CJ. However, CJ still supervises all the inspectors. And so Aubrey is more of a field team leader. So he doesn't supervise them. The permit supervisor, of course, answers directly to CJ, as does the current plans examiner, Brian Kozel. So he would be on kind of a parallel line with the combination of building inspectors who answer also to CJ. And so I should also point out that that was one of the changes that made a ton of sense too, was to have the permits side of it answer to the chief building official. And we didn't have it set up at OneScan. It was just kind of, some of it was based on who we had before and bringing in CJ's expertise made a ton of sense.
So the inspectors report to CJ, but Aubrey kind of coordinates.
No, Aubrey does too. So Aubrey, so he's more of a team leader out in the field. So CJ, he inspects if it's absolutely necessary, but otherwise he's working more on the strategic planning side of it, managing them, managing the permits side. So am I answering your question?
I'm trying to figure out who the inspectors report to, CJ or Aubrey.
CJ.
They report to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they report directly to me.
So, yeah, so Aubrey is chief building inspector. He's a team leader, but he is not their supervisor. So he's out in the field. I don't know if there's an equivalent somewhere else, but yeah, that's.
So CJ is gonna do, their performance evaluations, but in terms of if there's, a question about, if one of the inspectors has a question, they can go to.
Like the
To Aubrey.
technical, like is this the
Right.
metric set up? Okay,
To make
they're
it
not
call.
Aubrey.
Right. So he can kind of lead within, those day-to-day, questions, but CJ retains the actual management of the team.
Does Aubrey schedule them?
He does, yes. Yeah, there's a lot of scheduling, a lot of coordination.
Our inspectors are similar, Brian. We have a senior who assigns projects, whatever, but as far as any HR or personnel things, they report to me.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Hey, Brian, what's the planning manager for the future?
That's right now that is scheduled for 26.
That was what when we looked at the future budgets or okay, I remember.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Also, other items, you'll recall the Unified Development Code update kicked that off really in February officially. And that was followed by public input with a variety of stakeholders, community meetings, just to hear the initial issues or perceived issues with our current code. And then I'll give you an update in the next couple minutes about the next 180 days for the UDC as well. Also, the Mobility Minute series that Jason Deckman, our senior transportation planner, has been working very closely with communications and marketing as part of the Mobility Master Plan implementation. And we'll show you in a second the most recent one that I think is from June, and that was actually a collaboration with the police department. And so hopefully that video will show in just a second. All right, just looking at the UDC schedule, you can see that we had gone through the public input stage and then also the document assessment. Next is drafting of the document. All right, and there's Jason. I think this was May 31st, perhaps, or June 1st, around that timeline. This is about pedestrian safety.
We are working diligently to make Temple a safer place to live, work, and play. One example is the recently completed Apache Drive Sidewalk project. Residents notified us that this crossing was unsafe for children trying to reach Western Hills Elementary School. We received a TxDOT grant to construct the new sidewalk to ensure children can get to school safely.
The Temple Police Department, working together with the Planning Department, has analyzed and mapped locations of elevated hazards, what we call crash hotspots. These hotspots show us where the greatest needs are to prevent future accidents from happening. In the 5-year period between 2018 and 2022, out of the 3,062 crashes where injuries were reported, 64 people died in fatal accidents. Of those crashes, 10 involved a pedestrian or bicyclist who was killed.
Project planning is only half of the equation. The other half is the drivers. We ask drivers to please pay close attention to traffic and pedestrians and make safe and smart decisions on the road. The decisions you make while driving could be a matter of life or death. Please work together with us to keep Temple safe and to make it a place we love to call home.
All right, there you go.
Proud of how everybody uses our vision statement.
Yeah, look at that. And all of that in about 1:30. So, yeah, I think, so those have been successful and we'll continue to do them in the future as well. Also, going back to kind of the community vitality side, a project that Kelly has been heavily working on, Bird Creek battle marker relocation and battlefield preservation. I know y'all have had updates in the past, but some exciting results within the last 6 months. And so this is the trail in the Willow Glen subdivision, Nugent, that working with the developer, Kelly, also Dan Elder of the Bell County Historical Association to help preserve this battlefield site. This is from 1839, May 26th of 1839, in which Texas Rangers, of course, led by Captain John Bird, the namesake for Bird Creek. He actually died in that battle, but he and 34 of his Texas Rangers fought against, it was about 240 coalition of Native Americans, mostly Comanche, but some Kickapoo and some from the Caddo tribe. And a very significant piece of Republic of Texas history right here in our backyard, and happens to be on a city tract of land that was already to be preserved as part of the subdivision plan. So anyway, this is the trail that the developer had designed. And then, of course, the marker relocation, Kelly spearheaded that. And so this was in July. So July, the marker was actually, prior to that, a lot of paperwork with the Texas Historical Commission, Bell County Historical Association to get this relocated actually on site along that trail system. And Temple Granite Works was the consultant. And as you all probably know, they're on Main Street. They've always been there, as far as I know, and are over 100 years old as a company here in Temple. And there's a good chance that they actually installed that 1936 marker. You know, that was part of the centennial celebration, that granite marker. So that's pretty exciting for us, but I know they were really excited as well just to be a part of that. And there they are installing the marker. There's a view of the marker and some of the seating, the limestone blocks. And so the trail is all in. You see there's a trail loop. There's some interpretive signage that is coming next. So Kelly's working on that as well. So exciting little piece of historic preservation. And
Council will remember the location of it. Maybe you can go back to that picture where they're moving it. It was just kind of right off a road behind a couple of utility poles and whatnot. Yeah, just really in a poor place. So it's a much nicer area now.
Was it actually at the battle site? I mean, was it placed correctly?
Close. I mean, so, but it was not, I mean, so where it is now is actually a more historically significant location. That is very close to where Captain Bird was hit in the heart with an arrow from 200 yards. I mean, it was a shot that they documented, that witnesses documented, that was pretty much a once in a lifetime shot. Unfortunately, Captain Bird was the recipient of it, but
I've read that that's the longest confirmed arrow fatal shot in history.
okay, I wouldn't be surprised. So a lot of historic significance for this site.
Yep.
And also, just last thing, that's I think this is a good example of a public-private partnership and working with the development community to turn this historic site also into an amenity for the neighborhood and for the community. Also, we've worked quite a bit on red tape reduction. We've on a weekly basis, we're really reviewing on the permit side, on the planning side, that some of that some of those changes were a little easier to just implement immediately, including what we're calling a short pipe or an expedited process for the administrative plats. And so Christina Strickland, who was recently promoted to senior neighborhood planner, has been the key staff person. It avoids me having to assign those plats. You know, our planning tech can immediately assign them to Christina, and then the new planner who will be starting in January. Those cases don't have to go to the DRC meeting process. It's also a shortened review time. And so essentially you take a month process and cut it in half. And so that we're excited about that. And that's been working well. Also expedited zoning process. I'm sure y'all have realized this, but I'm not sure we've communicated it to you that we have actually, by suggestion, by legal, we had a month between Planning and Zoning Commission for zoning cases and City Council. And the question was asked, well, do you really need that month? And the answer is no. You know, it just requires a little more planning on the front end, but we can knock out 2 of those weeks in between. And so that's been implemented. Y'all have probably noticed that. But as you know, in the development community, especially, time is money. So when you look at, 2 weeks of savings of time on some of these big loans and notes that they're holding, that's significant. Also expanding the development review committee review to all zoning cases. And I think we've talked or alluded to some of that with you guys in previous conversations, but I'm not sure if you're aware that it had been implemented so that at the zoning stage, fire and engineering, for instance, can look at the potential impact on existing roads, look at the utilities to see if they are adequate, see if the water line could even support a fire suppression system. Those kind of questions that really realized, that it'd benefit everybody, including the developer, to answer those questions at the front end. Also formalization of our pre-development meeting process. So now we have blocked out a couple hours on Tuesdays, so that everybody's calendar, essentially it's a mini DRC review for zoning cases or any project that's proposed. I think that has worked out really well. All of the staff has been really helpful and accommodating, and that it's just makes for a more efficient process. And then last item on here, a revamped web page, working with communications and marketing, specifically Brittany Harris has done a fantastic job helping us to not only make our web page look a lot better, but it's also much more functional.
Brian, one of the red tape reduction things you didn't mention was we also take kind of individual questions, like kind of one-off topics from Tabo or a member of the development community. And one of those questions was fire suppression in townhomes, that the team was able to work through and provide some guidance that I think really helped or clarify what was required and what wasn't required, and streamline that process and that review process for the development community that might be wanting to build townhomes. So we also kind of take mini projects.
Right.
As well.
No, great point. All right. So next 180 days, of course, we're 6 months into a 18-month UDC process. So next step, drafting stage, which starts this month, or actually has already started. And so the approach with the consultant is going to be 3 different modules, sets of amendments, break it up into manageable chunks, but starting with our zoning districts and also the dimensional standards, as well as the uses. So that's what we're working on right now. In the next 6 months, we're going to really restart city-initiated rezoning process south of the railroad tracks to essentially extend downtown central area to properties that include Temple Granite Works, in that area. We had meetings with property owners back in December, and it was clear at that time that, based on the concerns and opposition, that we just weren't ready. But we're going to revisit that in the next 6 months. Also, just continuing the red tape reduction process, initiating the historic resource survey process, which Kelly is in charge of, and Caitlin, I believe, is going to help with that. The certificate of occupancy process, this is a big one. This has been discussed for years, but we have, now that we've got the pieces in place, including CJ, Fire Marshal, has more staff now as well. It's time that we tackle this question of formalizing a certificate of occupancy process, particularly for changes of use. Right now, change of use, we often don't find out until the end of the process through the business registration form, whether a use that is going in a particular building, whether it's even allowed by zoning. And so we are one of the few cities that I'm aware of that doesn't have a formalized certificate of occupancy process, which also includes the formalized inspection by the fire marshal when a new use comes in, just to make sure that it meets all fire exit, fire suppression requirements, et cetera. So it's really a health and safety issue that, working closely with legal and the fire department in particular, but a lot of departments are involved in that. Last one, permit ready plans as part of the infill development program and the neighborhood planning initiative, working with Pillar Architects and Covey Landscape Architects, as part of KPA, to develop plans that are literally, they have been reviewed by our staff and are permit ready for infill. And they're designed in a way that also is compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. This is part of the neighborhood planning process. So we're working on that, and we'll continue to do that. But I just thought I wanted to point out something that in the meantime, I think this is a success. It's not a big project, but I think it's a good example of, in the meantime, before we have the permit ready plans, these two houses on North 5th, 115 and 117, that are owned by the Housing Consortium. So we worked with them and also their contractor, Omega Homes, who, as you all know, Omega is, they're not they're a large scale builder. They don't typically deviate from their plans. So we were able to take their plans, which this is actually facing the alley. This is the front of their house. These houses, that's the way it was designed to be the front. But by working with them to flip the home, became much more appropriate for the downtown area and for our older neighborhoods, and could be a template moving forward, because these houses look good. They were just more suburban in nature by having the garage facing Fifth Street. So once again, that's actually the front. They got the sidewalks in there. You can see the other homes next to it. They look very compatible. And then the back.
Right,
Single family homes, yep, with alley access. And so
this is the alley,
that's the alley side. So
and they were flipped.
yes, so in a suburban neighborhood, that would be the front.
Right.
But by just flipping it, it made a huge difference and made it compatible, and also allows for the alley access and makes it more pedestrian friendly as well. Sidewalks without driveways intersecting them. All right, last portion, promise. Some of our KPIs, just looking at our permits, and really right now looking at single family residential. So for the first 6 months of the year, quarters 2 and 3. So the blue is 21, orange is 22, and black is 23. So you'll notice we are well below, in the first 6, or at least that period of time, well below the previous 2 years in terms of the number of single family residential. But looking at July, we're back up. And so 80 single-family residential permits in July compared to the same number last year and fewer the year before. So we all know interest rates are higher. And that has had an impact on our permitting and probably permitting across the country. So however, when you look at the right and our total volume of permits, it's consistent. So I think people are people who may have otherwise considered relocating, moving their family somewhere else in Temple have decided, hey, you know what? I've got a good interest rate. Let me just put that money into my current house and make it my dream home. So we've seen a lot of remodel permits, 3,048 total permits over that same 6-month period, which is just below the 3,300 last year, the same period, and above the previous year. And last year was a record year. And 21 was a record year until 22. Just a snapshot too of inspections. Once again, the inspection level is comparable. And when I say comparable to a record level, which we experienced last year. This is just for July. With all the transition, we didn't have all the numbers, but moving forward, we will have all those numbers. But once again, there were some changes going on. All right, so that's all I've got. Any questions that y'all have?
Yes, Brian, North
ma'am.
Fifth, those two houses, 115, 117, Omega, Omega owns them.
No, Omega was just hired by the housing consortium.
Oh, that you said that, I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Never
no.
mind. So they are rentals.
Honestly, I don't know. Kelly, do you know if they're rentals
They
or?
will.
They will, okay,
They'll-
yes.
Will
So
be
they will.
rentals, but those two houses look like they fall into the category of available, desirable housing that Stacy talked, where's Stacy talked
Yes.
about.
Would agree. I mean, those are, and those are still not your typical quote unquote suburban
No,
homes. But certainly you turn them around and we worked with them just to enhance certain elements on the
Mhm.
porch. Just so it did look like a front door, not a back door.
yes,
And,
yes.
And they were
Nice.
willing to work with us on that, so.
Barbara Bozon appreciates the extra work put in by your department to make that work with Omega's change of plans that, a little out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
They appreciate your department's flexibility around that. Very much.
Good, glad to hear it.
Yeah.
We're working with them and I think downtown is gonna benefit and we also just didn't wanna set the wrong precedent in terms of new downtown residential and miss that opportunity. So I think that was a win.
Right. I agree. Thank you.
All right,
Kelsey, anything else for Mr. Chandler?
you all.
All right.
Yeah, I was joking about 40 minutes, but I almost did it all.
All right, that's the last item on the agenda workshop. So I'll adjourn the workshop and we'll convene the regular meeting downstairs at 5 o'clock. Thank you all.